Welcome into Locked On Brewers. You saw the title, a great guest today. Bill Schroeder, Rock, Brewers television analyst, is up next.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Brewers, everybody. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. My name is Dominic Cotroneo, with Vinny Rottino joining us in just a little bit. We've got a Bally Sports Wisconsin reunion going on here on today's episode. Of course, Bill Schroeder is the color analyst of your Milwaukee Brewers. Vinny, of course, on pre and post game, and I'm the statistician for all of these guys. So it's going to be a great episode. We go down memory lane, of course, with Rock, talking about how when he first got the job, thanks to Wendy Seelig, and also his playing days, and of course, catching Juan Nieves' no-hitter, and a plethora of other topics. He's the great storyteller that he is. It's just amazing to be able to listen to him, and truly the best television broadcasting crew in all of baseball we get right here in Milwaukee with Brian Anderson, Jeff Levering, Sophia Minert, and of course, Bill Schroeder. So this is going to be a whole lot of fun. I want to preface this, though, is that you may notice the audio quality is a little different. Bill is actually being a trooper for us on this because his cable actually went out about an hour before we started recording. He said, no, we'll try to do it on the phone. And it sounds like it's off a phone, so it is what it is, but the stories are great. I did my best to clean up the audio so you can understand everything that he's saying, but I mean, it's Bill Schroeder. You're going to have a smile the whole time through this whole thing, so I really hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day, and we want to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Of course, here we are in February. New Year's resolutions are tough. Eating healthy might be one of those resolutions. Doesn't have to be if you include Built Bar in your diet. You can even try these puffs. They're amazing. It's like these marshmallowy infused chocolate fluffy flavors. They've got so many different special ones just for the puffs. They've got cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. They're all so good. Covered in 100% chocolate in the puffs and in the bars. And of course, the bars, super healthy for you as well. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, it's 240 calories and 30 grams of sugar. I mean, it's a no-brainer. If you want a sweet treat with amazing flavors, you got to go with Built Bar. And you can use our promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you're going to get 15% off your order at BUILT.com. Again, that promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off at Built.com.
Rock, thanks for coming on.
Guys, thanks,
we really appreciate it. I got to ask you before we get going off camera, you told me that you might want to switch to tomorrow night because you had a couple too many Miller Lights on the course.
Yeah.
And you forgot that you were coming on the show.
Yeah.
So can you explain that a little bit?
Well, I got this group of guys I play with. And, early on when I first got down here, we were like doing, we drink a beer when we get a birdie, but nobody ever got a birdie and we never got to drink any beer. So we kind of dumbed it down to pars. I actually had a pretty good day today, so I had like 6 pars. So you can,
oh wow,
you can count how many Miller Lights I'm in. So I'm hoping that you're going to be able to edit anything out that I say stupid over and above what I normally.
You got a 7-second delay built in. We're all good.
I got to follow up to that real quick, Rock. So every time we get someone on the show, I love to ask the question of how they got started. From what they're doing. Obviously, you're an integral part of the best broadcast team in baseball. UBA, Sophia. Obviously, how did you get there? Like obviously the playing career, and then you got into broadcasting. Everybody loves you. I'm sure everyone wants you to christen their kids at this point in Wisconsin. But because you're beloved in Wisconsin. How did you get there? And tell us the story.
Well, I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah.
It's a labor of love. I mean, I love Wisconsin. I grew up in New Jersey. I got signed by the Brewers in '79. I went, out of Clemson University. We had pretty good baseball. Went to the minor leagues. And got to Milwaukee in '83, and finally in '84, my rookie year, bought a house, stayed here. Had never actually ever thought about leaving. Wisconsin, although I'm in Arizona right now, we got a place down here, but it's funny because I get out of baseball and I was one of those guys that, I didn't want to get out of the game. This was '90 was my last year with the Angels. And I didn't want to be one of those guys that, get out of baseball and hanging around the ballpark and going into the clubhouse and, nipping at the spread during, before the games and stuff. So it took me like 3 years to actually get to a game at County Stadium after I get out of baseball. So I kind of had a little bit of a buffer period. So I'm on a putting green at a golf outing, and Sal Banda, who's the general manager, he comes up to me and he says, you ought to talk to Wendy about, doing the TV gig. And I said to Sal, well, I didn't know the TV gig was available, and I don't know quite sure if I'm available. I can actually do something like that. So I thought about it. I called Wendy Seelig, and we had lunch, and lo and behold, I got the job. And, first of all, the year before that, I was doing a radio show with Len Casper on TMJ. It's called Baseball Sunday. And we were doing kind of like the week in review, and we took calls and things like that. And incidentally, taking calls is not an easy thing, especially when the team's not playing well. So you got to learn how to be pretty diplomatic at that point. So, my first year was 95. I was with Jim Paskey. And people ask me, when they see me around, I said, hey, are you surprised that you've lasted 27, 28 years? I said, I'm more surprised that the Brewers asked me back after year one, because I look at videotape, VHS tapes. Do you guys know what VHS tapes are? But,
I do. Dom doesn't.
Yes.
I was taping some games, and it's like I was absolutely scared to death, brutal. If you ever see video of those or tapes of those when I was doing live opens, I looked like I was scared to death. You know what it's like, Vinny, right? When that red light goes on. I mean, it takes a while to get used to that.
I feel like that right now.
I owe a lot to Wendy and the Oral Preve, and got me going over at Old County Stadium. So I was 2 years with Jim Paskey. I had 5 years with Matt Vasgersian, and you would talk about the contrast in styles. Jim Paskey, he's kind of like, he's the quintessential pro and just kind of plays it straight. And with, Matt Vasgersian, my first year, I didn't know if we were going to be talking about how to hold a slider or a Flintstones episode. I wasn't quite sure what he was going to throw at me. 5 years with Matty, 5 years with Darren Sutton, and now, Brian. I think we've been together now, 13 years. I think it is, something like that.
Wow.
Brian and I, we really had a good time. I have a good time with all my partners. With Matt LePay and Jeff Levering is going to be doing a lot of games this year. And we've seen a lot of changes in the game, but it's still baseball, still love it. I can't imagine doing anything else. And I hope to God that the Brewers never ask me to quit. So I love doing it.
That's fantastic. And speaking to Vinny's point about you being, a rock star in Milwaukee, I want to tell a quick story, and this, is that when the games ended this year, we couldn't go down to service level, so we would walk through the concourse. Mm-hmm. And my introduction to Bill Schroeder mania in Milwaukee is walking through that concourse with you on a weekend game, because every 2 seconds you are stopped. Sign my baby. Can I take a picture? Mm-hmm. Rock, what's up? Every 2 seconds. These fans absolutely love you. And for an out-of-stater like me, seeing that very quickly, what does it mean to you and your family to have that kind of support from all the folks that watch?
Yeah, and I love them too. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, we've been in Milwaukee a long, long time. And, I kind of feel like the people that sit in front of us, in front of the TV booth, the lowest level, right behind home plate, best seats in the house. I mean, you see the same people every single night. You say hello. You've seen their kids grow up, and it's been an amazing thing. But I have a tough time walking through that concourse, and if somebody holds their hand out, I'm going to shake their hand. Even like last year, I mean, and people tell me, don't do that, all this kind of stuff. But I hate to pull my hand back on people. I mean, and I did have some wipes with me in the car, so after that was all done, I would get the stuff going. But it's amazing how often people will come up and say, tell me stories about their kids and this and that, but that is one of my favorite parts of the night. The game is over. The Brewers hopefully have won. People are all fired up. They got their hands up, their fists up, and you do the fist bump and the shaking of the hands and go Brewers and all that kind of stuff. That's something I think don't tell Brian this because I don't know if he's into it as much as me, but I'm going to miss, this year going down, the elevator and going to the service level and missing, that interaction with the fans. That was cool last year. The year before, we didn't have any fans in the stands. That was horrible, and we'll be able to get through it. But I love the fans. I love, there's a sign in front of our booth that says, no autographs. But if some kid's going to flip his hat up there a ball, I'm going to say I can't sign it. I grab it, I sign it, I throw it down. So that's kind of me and the fans in Milwaukee. We got a thing for sure.
Yeah, they certainly love you. I mean, I love you. I mean, my goodness, I grew up listening to you, Rock. So it's a treat. It's an honor. It's a privilege to have you doing the game. So I've learned a ton from you, trying to obviously get into this side of the game, the broadcasting side. So I've picked your brain quite a bit. So really appreciate all your help there with that too. So and I got to say, everybody, he makes it look really, really easy. It's not, right? I mean, obviously, it's not easy, and he does a great job. So,
yeah, and the one thing I did learn, Jim Paskey told me, he says, you don't want to be a baseball player in the booth. You want to be a broadcaster that used to play, and there's a big distinction there. You don't want to be a fan. You don't want to sit there and say, this is what I would have done. And back in my day, I think people's eyes get glassed over when you start sentences like that. And so when I played, I tried never to say those words because a lot of people that are watching don't remember when I played. So, a lot of these kids. But, I mean, everybody has their own – you have your own style, and B.A. has his own style, and Tim Dillard has his own style. And everybody's got to be different. You can't try and copy somebody. That just doesn't work. You got to be yourself. And you and I will sit there and we'll watch a game together, and you see a play, and I see something in that play that I want to talk about on the replay. You see something different, and that's the perspective that I think that fans, get when you have different people. That's why it's good that you're doing post game and pre game, and I'll do the game, because the same play I'll be talking about something about whatever, and then after the game you have a different spin on it, and they're both equally important to the outcome of the game. So it's all about being yourself, and again, getting comfortable with that red light when it switches on at 7:00 when the game starts. I mean, when that red light first comes on you, it takes a while to get used to it. Sometimes you got used to it a lot quicker than I did.
I don't know.
And it took me a couple of years for me to get used to that live open and all that. And it's amazing how you can't take back. If you say it, you said it. So hopefully that's not the case on this. You can edit out some of the stupid stuff.
No, it all sounds like great wisdom from a guy. Let's talk about playing. I mean, you're selling yourself short, making it to the big leagues, and it's like a requirement. We have to check the box and ask you about 1987 and catching Juan Nieves. We'll get to that in a little bit. But, you arrive to the Brewers and, fresh after the team makes it to the World Series, and seeing the pandemonium that followed that team for the years that followed. What was it like when you first made it to the big leagues with Milwaukee?
Yeah, it was great, and I had the privilege. I was in AAA, and, Charlie Moore got hurt, and Simmons was hurt, and Ned Yost was banged up, and I got the call. I went to Arlington, Texas, and I remember I got into Texas. We were a little bit late. My luggage took a while to get going. I was in the starting lineup that day. I showed up at the ballpark at like 6:30 for a 7:00 game. So Bambi was a manager. He took me out of the lineup that day, so I caught the next game. I caught Bob McClure. It's funny because when I first walked into the clubhouse in Arlington Stadium, there were 5 future Hall of Famers getting dressed in that locker room. It was Yount, it was Molitor, it was Fingers, it was Simmons, and it was Don Sutton. How many young guys are coming into the big leagues for the first time? I knew these guys because I had gone to a couple of spring trainings, but that's kind of unbelievable to have 5 future Hall of Famers getting dressed in the same locker room first time you show up into a big league, a regular season locker room. So that was kind of a special thing, and I learned a lot from a lot of those guys. But I learned a lot from Simmons. But just watching Molitor and Young go about their business on a day-to-day basis, how professional they were, how much sometimes it took them to get out on the field with the injuries. Sometimes they'd be in that training room for an hour and a half getting worked on, and they'd run out there and they'd go 4 for 4. So, and Paulie and Robin, they had an aura about them in that, as a young player or you're just kind of a role player on the team, you wanted to give your best, even if you weren't feeling good, if you're hurt, because you didn't want to let them down because you saw what they went through, to get out on the field on a daily basis. They did not like to miss. And that's kind of what I try to use, that same mentality in the broadcast booth. And I tell a lot of the young kids that I talk to about broadcasting, I said, don't ever rest on your laurels. If you think you're really good at what you're doing on a daily basis, there's always that one person, or there's those people, and you've heard me say this, Dom, in that there's always that one person that has never heard you on TV before and do a game. And you want to give that person your best effort, even if the game is bad or even if you're not feeling all that great. So you always evaluate how good you are based on every single day. What you did yesterday doesn't matter. If you talk about what you did yesterday, you're not doing anything today. So, always put your best foot forward no matter what the game is. People just don't want to hear somebody or broadcasters complain about how long a game is. That's something you should never do. So a lot of preaching right there, but those are kind of the things that I learned from those guys that I played with.
Jumping in one more time real quick to tell you about BetOnline. Of course, football is over with, but we've got plenty of basketball still to get to here in the early part of 2022. And BetOnline has you covered. They've got all the latest odds, the latest totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land. BetOnline.net is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your scores, podcasts, and news this year as well. And it's not just basketball, of course. BetOnline.net has hockey, boxing, and UFC odds right down to Olympic coverage, all available on their desktop or mobile website as well. So you can see all their trends and all of the action live at BetOnline.net, where the game starts.
We had Dale Swaim on the show, and he actually said that Robin said you want to play every day because your backup isn't as good as you. So maybe you feel that way between me and Dillard if we ever get to be to the point to be your backup. So, I thought that was really well said.
Yeah, no Wally Pippen here, man. That's not happening.
That's funny.
Wally Pippen, him. Yeah.
But I just
the Lou Gehrig story. Yeah.
I want to highlight how good you were as a player, Rock. I think you sell yourself short on TV and kind of talking about some disparaging, the way that you talk about yourself as a player. My goodness, you had a 707 OPS as a catcher. That's really, really good. I mean, that's Manny Pena territory, right? I mean, so you were a very good player. So I don't know. I just wanted to point that out. Yeah.
I tied Roger Maris, Roger had 61 home runs. I had 61 in my 8-year career. So I tied Roger. So, yeah. The Baseball Encyclopedia has me listed as good defensive catcher, occasional power. One sentence. That's all I get.
I did want to. So let's change gears a little bit. What do you got on this Brewers club, right? I think everyone kind of understands there's a couple-year window at least with this pitching staff that they're going to have a shot at winning a World Series. What do you think?
Man, I agree. I think they got a good long run ahead of them. I mean, what is it, 4 years in a row in the postseason? Good run last year. Corbin Burns, Josh Hader, Woody, Hauser, all these guys. I mean, the pitching staff is set to have another good season. We just got to get the bats a little bit more consistent, But I think that's a across the board Major League Baseball issue. I think offenses are hit and miss on a daily basis. They'll have good runs and then they'll go soft a little bit. But the big boys got to show up. I mean, Willie Adames was a great shot in the arm last year for the team. And you had Garcia and you had a lot of good performances from Narvaez and guys like that. How about our center fielders? Outstanding work out of Kane and but you got to get the guys going. You got to get the more consistent offense, cut down on the punch outs. And I think if we're able to do that, the Brewers are able to do that, and that is an across the baseball board. I mean, that's just not Milwaukee. I mean, I think pitching has been really dominant. I think the Brewers pitching staff has a chance to win another Cy Young. And then Josh Hader, and it's going to be important for Devin Williams to come back strong. A little bit of concern, the broken hand and how he's going to feel coming back. I'm bullish. I think it's not just a couple of years. I think the Brewers have a pretty good run, consistent run in. And they've got the best manager I think in baseball in Craig Counsell.
Yeah, agreed. It was an incredible year and more things to come. And in this season, we saw some history. I am going to go back to 1987. Of course, you had caught the previous only no-hitter in Brewers history, and you got to call the next no-hitter in Brewers history with Corbin Burns and Josh Hader. What was that night like? Obviously, you were in Milwaukee as the game was in Cleveland, but what was that night like watching it?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I mean, Corbin Burns, every time he walks out there, I mean, the Brewers have a couple of starters that any time they go out there, you're thinking they have a chance to throw a no-hitter. And that's really an exciting thing, even before the first pitch is thrown. I mean, Corbin Burns, I mean, what a performance this guy put on for, the last 2 years, actually. But, unhittable, with that cutter and, the control and the way he's able to mix and locate his fastball. And his catching did a great job with the pitching staff as well. But it was a shame Corbin couldn't fish. It was a pitch count thing, and he said himself that he was gassed after 8 innings. And if you have a no-hitter going into the 9th inning, who better to try that out of that bullpen than Josh Hader? He barely ever gives up a hit. But, it was fun. And, I think, it's nice that the Brewers were able to get the no-hitter. The Brewers should have had a no-hitter a few years ago. With CC Sabathia in Pittsburgh, it still is kind of a burr under the Brewers' saddle. That was certainly should have been a no-hitter. But you can always I always have that to pin my hat on along with my pin that Dillard gave me. I did catch the no-hitter, and it's interesting because in that game, I showed up at the ballpark. I wasn't in the starting lineup that day. B.J. Surhoff was in the starting lineup, and unbeknownst to Tom Trebelhorn, who made out the lineup, BJ had some dental work done. I think he had some root canal or something going on. He just couldn't. He was just feeling terrible. So midway through batting practice, Trebelhorn came up to me and said, you're going to catch today. And so ended up catching. We ended up throwing a no-hitter, and had BJ Surhoff not had dental work that day, Corbin Burns would have the only no-hitter in Brewers history.
That's true. Again, you're selling yourself short. The self-deprecating humor always comes out with you, huh?
No, but I mean, Juan Nieves had incredible stuff. I mean, his arm injury. No telling how good that young man could be. He's made a good career for himself as a pitching coach. He's a heck of a nice guy. But it was a perfect storm for him. He had just an explosive fastball and just moved on, darted and cut and rode high in the zone. He had he was throwing some curveballs and things like that. And it was basically, it was a cold, rainy, kind of windy day in Old Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. We got off to a comfortable lead, and the rest is history. And Robbins catch. There's a lot of great plays in that no-hitter. Dale Swaim had a great play. Jim Pashuric, who was playing left field, Rob Deere didn't play that game. He made a nice diving catch. Molitor with a line drive stab down the line. But, those are the kind of things that stick in your mind. You remember those things like they happened yesterday.
It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And Nieves, of course, is now the bullpen coach with the Detroit Tigers. You said some glowing remarks about him earlier this year when the Brewers were in Detroit. So hopefully we can see each other again in person sometime soon. And I loved your video congratulating Omar specifically on the Jumbotron, reminding everyone, hey, the catcher put down those signals for you. I think that's something that people lose sight of, right?
Oh, yeah. I congratulated Omar. It took me, I went on and on and on about Omar and Narvaez calling the game. And I said, Corbin, you did a pretty good job, too.
Pretty great. I've only got one last question, Rock, and it goes off of your name, Rock. For the folks who maybe aren't familiar or just never had a chance to ask you, where does Rock actually come from for one and only Bill Schroeder?
All right. Well, it was down in I was down in AAA in Vancouver. We were playing in Vancouver, and every single night it seemed like it was damp. The grass got really damp. It was right along the Fraser River in Vancouver. You ever been to Vancouver? Beautiful city on the water, the Fraser River. And Kevin Bass was playing left field for us that particular night. Remember Kevin? Mm-hmm. Ended up making a pretty good name for himself with the Astros. But he threw a ball in. This is back in the day where there was a play at the plate where catchers always take their masks off, right? You take your mask off and heave it. And guys are a little smarter than that now. They keep their masks on. But the ball skipped, hit me in the eye. cut a gash right above my eyebrow. Had to go into, the hospital and get stitches. Next day I get to the ballpark, and Chuck Porter, who was pitching for us at that particular time, he says, "Man, well, that sounded terrible. It sounded like a rock hitting a brick wall." I'm not sure if the ball got hurt more or you did. And it started out as Rockhead, and it still is Rockhead in some people's names, some people's minds. But it softened up as the years went on, as I threatened people to not call me Rockhead anymore, to Rock. So there's a lot of Rocks out there. Tim Raines is the Rock. You got the Rock, the actor. You got Rock Larry McCarron, the center for the Packers, who does a good job. But anyway, I prefer Rock as opposed to Rockhead, and you can probably understand why.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Rock, really, really appreciate you coming on. I think that is, I think that's it. Dom,
We could go on and on and on with Rock.
Rockhead?
This is what we do pre-game, sitting there, just telling the tales.
Well, it's getting to be bedtime. It's 8:30 here in Arizona. It's getting to be bedtime. But I'm hoping that the owners and the players can get this thing together, get it right, and get baseball going here pretty soon. Hopefully, we don't miss any regular season games. And but like I said, I'm going into season 28. I just signed a 3-year contract last year, and we'll see what happens after that. So Wally Pipp over there, Vinny, you might have a seat in your future.
Hey kids, go Google Wally Pipp to understand the reference that Bill Schroeder is making right
here.
Yeah,
Wally Pipp / Luke Gehrig.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll see. But anyway, thanks, guys. Really enjoyed it. I mean, well done. And Benny, keep up the good work, man. You did a great job last year. And Dom, we're looking forward to having you in the booth again, doing stats. I mean, this guy, we'll be on the air. We'll be getting ready for the game. And Dom will ask me at about 6:30, we're going at 7. He says, "You need anything for you?" "No, I'm good. Good." So the lights go on, it's 3 minutes before airtime, and I'll ask him about, how many, Corbin Burns, what was his, whatever stat. And within 2 seconds, he's got the stat, and I actually end up using it in the open. So I ask you a lot of stuff. I ask you a lot of questions. I give you.
You always get it in. It's awesome.
Always get it in. You always get it in. No matter, it's like 2 minutes before airtime. Hey, by the way, yeah. Okay.
It's so great. But
Bill,
thanks so much.
Man. Appreciate it. Good job.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rock.
We'll see you hopefully soon.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.